Hey, Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman Magazine, and in this week's web fishing forecast, we have blues to 15 pounds in SoCo, Rhode Island. We have fluke filing in around the windmills off a block. We have lots of big tautog from shore and boat in Rhode Island, and then some moving over into Mass as well. It seems like the canal might be poised to break open. We'll see if that ends up being the case. And the flounder bite is heating up off of Quincy and up in Scituate Harbor as well. Stay tuned for all that and more.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Starting off in Massachusetts, kind of a funny thing happened. You know, we had those bluefish that showed up in Buzzards Bay and then they disappeared. I'm not saying that nobody's catching them at all, but they pretty much vanished from the reports. I didn't even hear about a single one. There were some big ones there last week, and they went somewhere, but no one knows, so no one seems to know where. That's not the case in Rhode Island, but we will touch on that more in a little bit. Striped bass can be caught pretty much anywhere in Massachusetts now. We've got them from the New Hampshire border all the way down to the Cape. Pretty much anything north of the canal, you're topping out at 26 inches and finding a lot of fish far below that. Out of the Cape, I've heard of fish up to 36 inches, and still, again, mostly schoolies, but some slot fish and even a few just over slot. Same story in Buzzards Bay. We're hearing about that same class of fish. Tons of schoolies piling into the west end right now, and a pretty good number of slot fish mixing in with them. So it looks like, you know, this breaking tide coming up could be a decent one. It remains to be seen whether or not there'll be big fish there, but there's definitely going to be some keeper-sized fish and a lot of schoolies. The predominant bait that people are throwing still soft plastics. You're seeing a lot of guys throwing paddle tails and sluggos and things like that and doing pretty well on these small to medium stripers. The topwater bite is starting. You're seeing some fish on jumping minnows and Colt snipers and things like that. And the night guys are getting them on some of the smaller size swimmers like SP minnows and redfins and things like that. Still haven't seen any consistent news on 20-pound stripers in that area, but things are kind of lighting up and it's starting to look better and better by the day. I did get a report, as usual, from Greg from Red Top. I'm just going to read his report verbatim, as I always do. He said there's a lot happening in Buzzards Bay. He said the tautog bite has really picked up, and there's been some bigger fish that have been moving into the shallower waters. We were getting reports of tons of schoolie action outside the west end as well, with some slot-sized fish mixing in, and starting to make an appearance in the canal mixing with the schoolies. The first breaking tides of the season happened this week, and there are reports of mackerel outside the east end, so those fish in Buzzards Bay may come in and find exactly what they're looking for. It remains to be seen what's going to happen there, but we could have a fun topwater bite coming up this week. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for the report. One of the things that I did hear from Canal Bait and Tackle is that the really popular bait has been the two mid sizes of the Savage Sand Eel in the lighter colors, the white color, that blue over white or ghost herring. Those have been the colors that have been hot, and that bait has been slaying both in and outside the canal. Guys are doing really well up in the estuaries with those also. Then I checked in with James up on the North Shore, and he was happy to report that they're starting to see stripers up there. He said it's looking like peak shad fishing is going to start this week, but he'd been spending more time in the surf. He said one of his fishing partners, Aaron, and I have been out in the salt the last 4 or 5 days, and we're starting to see a lot of these fish that have either dropped out of the Merrimack or have moved in from the south. We're seeing fish with sea lice daily. And now it's a mix of fish with and without lice. This next moon, we should be seeing the start of slot fish moving into the area up north of Cape Ann. And he also said that for whatever reason, they've been seeing a lot of sunfish washing out of the Merrimack River. Could be rain runoff or whatever it is. These fish are all dead but he said it was really odd just to see them kind of floating out in the river like that. I never seen anything like that myself. There have been no fluke reports to speak of in Massachusetts waters, but I have heard a lot of flounder reports starting to crop up as the water temperatures reach 50 in the southern parts of Boston Harbor and Scituate Harbor and places around there. Catches have been good for the start of the season, and they should really only just get better and better from here on out. That fishery up there on the North Shore there, well, on the South Shore of Boston, has become like the most popular flounder fishery in New England. When I talk to the charter guys up there, they have charters coming in from New York and all over New England. It's become sort of the last vestiges of the great winter flounder fishery that once was. And if you're a winter flounder guy, that's the place that you need to go. I've been hearing that black fishing reports have really started to fire up in Buzzards Bay. But there's also sort of an underutilized or unknown fishery up in these same areas where the winter flounder are. Last fall they had fish to 10 pounds. I was talking to Pete from Belson's Bait and Tackle, and he was mentioning that, saying that he's really been trying to get his guys into it, but it's still very underutilized, and it might be a great place for guys looking for some, virgin water to head up there and put your tog skills from Rhode Island or Connecticut to the test. You may find that there's a phenomenal fishery up there that just seems like almost nobody's taking advantage of. But they're still getting lots of blackfish in the canal, even down the east end, and then as you go out the west end and get out towards Stony Point Dike, that seems to be the hot zone. From Stony Point Dike right down to Marion, that seems to be where the epicenter is right now. A lot of action, and it just seems like the fish are just getting a little bit bigger, and these bigger fish are just moving shallower and shallower. So right now is a good time to target that area if you're a togger. Now we're going to move into Rhode Island, and there's a lot going on in Rhode Island this week. The two main things seem to be a clash of blackfish and bluefish. There's been a lot of big blackfish this week. I heard of 2 over 13 pounds caught, one from shore and one from a boat this week. And then just a lot of solid action on keeper-sized fish and fish up into like the 8-9 pound range. And again, this is happening from shore and from boat. This is that time of year when a lot of those females start moving up shallow, and they can be pretty easy to target from shore. Now we're hearing a lot of reports from South County of guys going out there looking for schoolies and then getting schooled by big bluefish. There's been bluefish up to 15 pounds. The breachways have been the epicenter of that, and they're catching them outside the breachway, in the channel, and up inside the ponds. So you don't have to be, standing in a rotation at the end of the jetty. You can just kind of go down there and pick your spot, and you got a really good shot at getting some of these bluefish. And like I said, they're big. I talked to my buddy Kai, and he said that it's been consistent all week, 8 to 15 pound bluefish on topwater plugs or swimmers, and that's what we've heard throughout the region. Tackle shops have told me that they've actually had to replace some rods because these guys are expecting to catch an 18-inch schoolie, and instead they're catching a 16-pound bluefish. So it might be time to put that schoolie rod away and pull down the big rod from the rafters, because we're playing big boy games now. Over on Aquidneck Island, I talked to Christian Awe of Awestruck Charters, good friend of mine, and he said the same thing that I've kind of already said, but that the togging has just been phenomenal all the way around the island. And they're seeing a lot of bass in that 18 to 30 inch range. They're not seeing too many fish over 30 inches. I talked to Robbie Taylor. He's always out on the out on the bay, always checking for everything. And he said that he has seen a few bigger fish. He said that they've been real small pods, just sticking tight with the bunker schools, but they're trickling in, and by the time this next moon passes, we should have a lot more big fish in the bay, and sort of that big fish bite should light up by then. And the bay is the best bet if you're just looking to go out and bend your rod on stripers. There's tons of schoolies up there. There's tons of short slot fish. And they're taking a variety of methods. You can get them on top water, but the two most popular methods are soft plastics, and a lot of people have just been crushing on the fly rod. Flies have been becoming more and more popular, and if you look on social media, you see there's just a lot of people catching their first fly rod stripers up in the bay right now. And then the codfish action is still hanging on out of Block Island. I got a picture here from Mikey by way of Watch Hill Outfitters, and he said that he did really well jigging up those cod. He got a bunch of them. He got some fat mackerel out there as well. That bite is hanging on, but a lot of people are turning off of it now because these inshore fisheries are starting to light up, stripers and tog and whatnot. And then just to wrap up the Rhode Island fishery, I'm going to throw it over to the guys at Watch Hill Outfitters. They got a little video prepared for us here, so check it out.
Mike Wade with Watch Hill Outfitters checking in for the week. Just want to let you know what's going on the water. We currently have water temperatures rising, quite a bit of bait being pushed towards the shoreline, and one of the exciting things is the squid that has actually hit the shoreline. Guys are talking about tube squid all the way from Galilee to Watch Hill. Pretty fun to catch. If you're interested in getting some fresh bait for the season, or you just like to eat squid, I'd highly recommend getting some small little squid jigs and getting out on the beaches. The other thing that's going on is the amount of bluefish that are pushing those squid. Pretty big fish coming in, anywhere from 10 pounds to about 15 pounds. Some of the guys call them gator blues. Super fun fight, super fun to catch. Definitely get out there looking for them. The other thing that we have going on in the back bays is the worm hatch that is on. We currently use quite a bit of different worm hatch flies. One of my favorites is a little cinder worm hatch fly by Umpqua. Very exciting to use. Fish it real slow. Back bays are definitely producing some big bass with these little flies right now. The other thing that we have going on is as the water temperatures rise, some of the guys are starting to bring me some of the fresh baits. So what we have, and all the customers like to call freshies, some real big bunker all the way up in the river. Nice baits, and what's behind them is the bluefish and the bass that are pushing them. So I highly recommend this bait right now. The other thing that we have is green crabs for the blackfish season that's coming on. Get out to the rock piles. These little guys will catch you the Togzilla of your dreams. I can guarantee it. Super fun blackfishing, very soft bite, but very, very effective. I really love to go blackfishing in this area.
Moving over into Connecticut, the big story is just that everybody's kind of waiting for those big fish to come out of the Hudson and move into the Western Sound. There are some fish out there, and there's some good ones. Guys trolling mojos and spoons are getting some nice fish. But it's more of a search and destroy mission right now. There's not any hot spot. There's no guarantee that you're going to find them. These fish are relating to bunker schools. There's a lot more bunker than there are bass at the moment. So you're going to be hunting around, going from school to school. And sometimes you may not find much at all. Other times you may find them. The bass fishing in the Housatonic has been tougher this week, and the guys over at Bobby J's said that they think it's really just due to the fact that there's just so much bait in there right now. So the lower Hoosie has fish, but you're competing with a lot of bait fish, and the bite just has suffered from that. But the guys fishing the adjacent beaches or out in boats fishing the areas outside the Hoosie have been doing a lot better. No really big fish reported, but a few fish into the 20-pound class and a lot of larger sized schoolies and a few slot fish in the mix as well. The best bass fishing I've heard of in Connecticut this week is up inside the Connecticut River. I talked to Andrew from Fishing Factory 3. He said that he dumped out of the store a little early the other day, actually with Aaron, our new field editor for Connecticut. And they headed north from Middletown, and they found a lot of bass just pushing herring around. They got a lot of fish in that 18 to 26 inch range on redfins, and then kind of in the middle of the melee, a big blitz, they ended up pulling one 20-pounder out. News from further upriver is that there are bigger fish upriver, but there's a lot fewer fish, so you're working a lot harder to maybe catch a 20-pounder. But they're up there, and those fish are most likely holdover fish. As you know, we had a lot of rain this week, which blew out the river, and they opened up the dam too, which just kind of muddied things up. But it's gotten a lot better, he said. The clarity has really improved. The water levels come down a lot. The shad fishing is coming back. It's not what it was before all that happened, but it's coming back, and the bite seems to be getting better and better. Fluke fishing in Connecticut is really just starting. The only fish I've heard about in the actual sound or at least on our side of it, we're in Niantic Bay. Up around Millstone and up inside the bay, not a lot of fish, just a couple here and there. But I did hear, and I've got some photos here to prove it, that there were some fish at Isabella. Some keeper-sized fluke moved over and are now in behind the island, and that fishery is starting to light up. The most consistent place is Montauk. The second most consistent place right now is over in Peconic Bay. So if you don't mind making the ride across, you got 3 solid spots to try. You can burn a little gas and put a limit together. Might be worth it. I've only heard of a few bluefish in the Eastern Sound, and those have all been around the Thames, and they haven't been big. I'm sure that some of these tanker bluefish that are out on South County will make the turn, come around Naps, and then end up at the Thames and start moving in from there. But the only ones I've heard about have been on the smaller side, not tiny, but 5-6 pounders, and not a lot of them. There are some bass around the Thames too, mostly small fish, but a couple slot fish in the mix there. At least that's what I heard. Weak fish action seems to have cooled off, both in Rhode Island and Connecticut. I'm kind of wondering if it's just a matter of, of being in between moons. Weak fish really seem to like the moons, so I'm kind of expected to see a little spike in bluefish, to see a little spike in weak fish activity when the moon passes. We'll see about that. And now I'm going to throw it over to the guys from Fisherman's World. They're going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on in the Western Sound.
We got a lot going on this week with big blues starting to show up to our west and some in the Norwalk area. These fish seem to be shallow, and there's some out in the middle. We got big bass to our west getting caught on mojos and spoons. And we have a lot of striped bass around the Norwalk Islands running our beaches and starting to hit our local reefs out in the deep water. Guys diamond jigging or throwing poppers in the morning are doing well. Diamond jigging 11B on the outgoing seems to be the way to go. And fluke reports remain a little slow with a lot of shorts. A lot of guys are shooting across, fishing the Port Jeff, Smithtown area. This should only improve with our water temps warming. And we look forward to a good sea bass opener coming up. There's plenty of sea bass around as bycatches, so it should be a good opener. All right, good luck.
And I'm just going to wrap it up with some thoughts on fishing around schools of squid. There's been a lot of squid around. I've heard a lot of guys asking questions about how do you fish when squid is the predominant bait. And there's a lot of cliches that people talk about. Some of them are warranted, some of them maybe not. And I also want to just say thanks to Roy Leva for this photo that he sent in for the squid section here. But there's a couple things about squid that always kind of stay in my mind when I know that they're around. One of them is sort of the preconceived notion that people have that they're kind of clumsy, just kind of squirting around, and that is not the case. If you've ever watched them, especially if there's a lot of fish on them, you'll see how deliberate and how fast they can be. There's none of this crazy darting action unless they're trying to evade something and just using their back and forth motion to try to make it hard to get hunted down. But I've seen them, especially in the canal. Squid will go through, big bass will get on them, and then a couple squid will break away from that school, and they will just, the speed that they move at will blow your mind, and they'll come all the way in until they're in inches of water, and they just sit there. And so there's two modes for squid. One is that they sit there almost perfectly motionless and they just kind of hang. Then they can kind of go backwards and forwards, or they go full tilt and they just rocket. I don't even know how they do it. I mean, they stay almost perfectly still and they just move like a jet plane. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm fishing around, when I know when I know squid is the predominant bait. So probably, in my mind, probably one of the best baits that you can use is an unweighted soft plastic, something like a Sluggo. This is a real big Sluggo just because we have a lot of really big squid around right now. But I'm going to fish this completely unweighted because I want to have the option to stop it. So if I had it on a jig head or on a swim bait hook, you stop it, it's going to go straight down like this, which is not what a squid does. I want to sort of tap into the fact that squid use in non-motion to camouflage themselves. So they will get into a position and just hold it. And this is one of the best baits that you can replicate that with. The only other thing that you can kind of do that with is maybe something like a level sink, slow sinking needlefish. That's another one that I'll use. Same situation, but I always use these when there's some current, because I can use the current to hold the bait up. You know, I'll keep my line tight, let it get past me in the tide, and then I just stay tight to it, keep it up, and then you're getting that same effect. You're keeping the bait kind of motionless, stationary in the water, and then with either of these, then you have the option to kick it into gear. You can start working the rod hard if you see evidence that something's going after it, if you hear and you think something might be behind it, or if you just want to show those two modes and try to elicit a fish that might be nearby into thinking that it's been spotted and this thing's trying to get away from it. So there's a lot of cliches, like everybody thinks you should use a darter and they like these clear colors, you know, they like the amber or this, whatever this one is, purple. I've caught fish on darters when I thought they were squid around, but it's not the plug that I typically reach for. Like I said, I want to be able to fish those two, you know, I want to be able to fish low gear and high gear. And a darter really isn't the best bait for that. Another favorite bait of mine, though, is a glide bait. And this one's made by RG Lures. This is one of my favorites. He's a real good guy down in Jersey, makes a great plug. But this is the one that he specifically designed for the canal, but I like it everywhere. I like it everywhere because he had to add weight to the back to get it to, so it wouldn't be so wild in the water. And that is something that you can replicate that squid action a little bit easier with, because it's not going to start waving out of control. It's going to stay tighter so you can fish it fast and just get sort of a vibrating rush forward. And then when you stop this bait, you know, you give it a little jerk and stop it, you're gonna have it glide out to the side and stop, and then it's gonna glide out to the side and stop again. So you're getting those moments where the bait kind of lays motionless, and just like that needlefish, if you get it down tight, you can hold it in place, and you can replicate that pretty well. In the daytime, if you're seeing squid, you're seeing it pushed out of the water, again, I'm really likely to reach for a soft plastic as long as I can reach the fish with it. Otherwise, I'm going to throw something like a pencil popper. And I'm just going to bomb it out there, and I'm going to do my best to only replicate one mode, and that's just frantic escape. I'm going to try to fish this thing as fast as I can with a lot of back and forth action, and just try to replicate, you know, maybe a squid that's been winged and he's not doing too well and freaking out. That to me is a good signal to give to a fish that's getting ready to try to eat something. You know, that's the easiest meal it's going to find in the school, and if you can replicate that, you get a good shot at getting taken down. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope the reports helped, and I hope that little squid expose helped for you guys. If you liked what you saw, you know, please subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell down there so you can get a notification every time we put something new up. And please, you know, follow us on social media and come over. If you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, come over and give us a look. You know, we've got a lot of stuff to offer. We cover a lot of different fisheries, a lot of different regions. You get access to all the different regional publications and all the reports. We have the Dream Boat Contest, which gives you the opportunity to win a Steigercraft boat. And, you know, like I said, we've got a lot to offer. So, you know, use the reports wisely. Get out there this week and catch some fish. Here we are in the thick of the spring, and I think this next moon is going to be the thing that really kicks things off. So good luck out there, and we'll see you guys next week.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit Steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.